copy of a reimbursement check to Michael Thompson, along with the travel request, Anderson County travel request, and a detail of the coursework that he was taking.
And do these documents further reflect that Michael Thompson was taking appraisal courses all the way back in September 2008?
Yes.
And Defense Exhibit 12 is the same question. Are these more training reimbursements from September of 2008?
Yes.
A couple of questions. First of all, what do you recall about why Michael Thompson was taking these courses?
Well, Michael, originally when we discussed a position with the county, he was interested in a position in the assessor's office. And we had a pretty long, detailed conversation about that. And I encouraged him to take some of the classes that new employees would take that would go work for the assessor's office. He agreed to do that. That's pretty much it. But he enjoyed this kind of work, or this type of thing. And I thought it could prove to be beneficial to him.
How long have you been the county, or how long were you the county administrator?
In Anderson? Since 1996.
And before that, how many years were you a county administrator?
10 years. 11 years.
In your experience, would those appraisal courses help Mr. Thompson with respect to his position as a county council member?
They would have.
Can you explain to Judge Cash why?
Judge, county council members are responsible for appointing the Board of Assessing Appeals. And that's often can be a pretty controversial activity because people are appealing their property taxes for their assessed values. And then they'll go before this board, and that board is appointed by the individual county council members. And for him to understand this process certainly would have been a benefit to the rest of the county council, I'm sure, because probably very few of them, even probably this current council today, can't tell you too much about what they do. That's one way it would be beneficial to them. I mean, that was pretty obvious to me. I didn't get into detail with him about that. I kind of figured he understood that. The other is like Mr. Allen knows, the county council is very involved in developing the proposed budget, and they're involved in working with finance staff, the county auditor's office, the treasurer's office, and trying to develop the revenues for the county, specifically tax revenues. And from 1996, all the way up to the time I left, there's a lot of legislation, a lot of things that were changing within state government and how assessed values were being looked at and considered. There's a constant moving target that we had to stay on top of. And to have a county council member that really truly understood the value of the mill and how it was calculated, that would be beneficial. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that these types of classes would be good for any county council member to take. I wish they all would take it.
Now, was your intention that Michael Thompson would be transferred into the buyer 2 position?
Yes, it became that, yes.
And what benefit, if any, would the training have with respect to the buyer 2 position?
We've had a lot to do with it. There are individuals that work within the transportation division that deal with rights-of-way acquisitions, but there's no one in the county anywhere that dealt with or that completely understood the property, or with the exception of the county tax assessor, understanding the importance of knowing the value of property when it comes time to buy property. The county was always involved in acquiring property. Always. It's a constant thing. Probably even today we have several transactions during the year. To have someone in purchasing would have been very beneficial, especially with a real estate background.
At the time when you signed off on the pre-approval from Mr. Thompson's appraisal training, was it your expectation that he would fill the buyer 2 position?
Yes.
At that point in time? Had he already completed half of the courses?
Yes, he had.
Were those the courses we saw back in September that we just looked at?
Yes.
I'd like you to turn back for me to Plaintiff's Exhibit 37. And I would like to ask you a question about Plaintiff's Exhibit 37 with respect to how it interplays with Plaintiff's Exhibit 42. And my question is this. Assuming the assistant purchasing manager position closed out on August 29th of 2008, do you recall why the buyer 2 position in Plaintiff's Exhibit 42 wasn't posted until November?
No, I don't.
Was that uncommon for that type of lag between positions?
No.
Excuse me, one moment, Your Honor. I'm just trying to find one witness one exhibit I neglected to include, which is a fairly important one. It's right here. May I approach this?
You may.
Mr. Preston, I just handed you Plaintiff's Exhibit 91. What is this document?
It's my personal financial statement.
Does this personal financial statement fairly and accurately reflect your current financial status?
Yes, it does.
Is your financial status either the same or worse than what is reflected in Plaintiff's Exhibit 91?
Worse.
Do you currently have the ability to repay severance agreement monies if this contract were rescinded?
No, I do not.
You may, yes, sir. Yes, sir, you may.
If you would, will you turn to the tab that's Plaintiff's Exhibit 7? What is this document?
It's the severance agreement for release of claims.
Can you turn to page 3 of that agreement? Does paragraph 8 contain a covenant not to sue?
Yes, it does.
Can you read paragraph 8 into the record for me?
The county agrees and hereby covenants irrevocably never to make any claim or demand or commercial cause or permit to be instituted or prosecuted any claim, charge, proceeding, or action at law or inequity against Mr. Preston, his heirs, legal representatives, or signs by reason of any claim, demand, or cause of action which the county may now have or may hereinafter acquire relating to Mr. Preston's employment with the county or his actions as an employee on behalf of the county, expressly including but not limited to all actions taken by Mr. Preston within the scope and course of his employment as county administrator.
Is it your understanding, Mr. Preston, that the county has made allegations against you arising out of your employment as county administrator?
Yes.
Do those allegations in part relate to the Palmetto Agricultural Consultants contract?
Yes.
Do they relate in part to allegations relating to Mr. McAbee's travel reimbursements?
They do.
Do they relate in part to the commission received by Mr. McAbee?
They do.
Do they relate in part to memoranda initialed by you for Heather Jones?
They do. Do
they relate in part to promising Mr. Thompson a job in your role as county administrator?
They do.
Did all of these things occur during your tenure as county administrator?
They did.
Is it your understanding the county alleges that you broke your fiduciary obligation to the county with respect to the allegations contained in the amended complaint?
Yes.
Were those fiduciary obligations that only would have arisen in your capacity as county administrator?
That's true.
As a private citizen, would you owe the county fiduciary obligations?
No.
Has the county alleged that you committed fraud for failing to disclose certain facts that it contends you had a duty to disclose because of your position as a county administrator?
Yes.
Has the county, in your view, Mr. Preston, breached the plain language of paragraph 8?
Absolutely.
If you can turn to Defense Exhibit 37. Mr. President, have you incurred costs and attorney fees defending yourself in this action?
I have.
What is Defense Exhibit 37?
It is a cover letter and contract.
Is it a retainer agreement?
It's a retainer agreement between Nelson Mullins and myself.
When is it dated?
December the 3rd, 2009.
Does this retainer agreement have two component pieces with respect to payment of attorney's fees?
It does.
What is the first component?
The first component is fee of $150,000 plus cost.
Is that, or was that amount intended to be paid in installments over time?
Yes, for a period of time.
What is the second component?
Contingency,
And what is the amount of that contingency?
$300,000.
Is it 300 or 350?
Sorry, $350,000.
Does the retainer agreement indicate when the contingency fee would be applicable?
At the completion of the matter.
Will you turn to page 2 for me?
Page 3.
Page 2. Does the fourth bullet point address the contingency fee?
It does.
Does it indicate when the contingency fee would apply?
In the event we were successful.
And it says if awarded and collected, correct?
Correct.
Can you turn to the very end of this agreement? The second page from the back. Is there a second addendum?
Yes.
Does it define what the term awarded and collected will be?
It does.
What does it say?
For the purposes of this agreement, awarded and collected shall mean the client has prevailed by the way of summary judgment or defense verdict, thereby avoiding repayment of severance monies, or client has obtained net recovery in excess of amounts owed to the plaintiff in the event of an adverse outcome.
Now, Mr. Preston, this is sort of an unusual retainer agreement, don't you think?
Yes.
Why was it structured this way, do you recall?
I had a county suing me that has unlimited resources. I had 3 Weiss lawyers, 2 other lawyers from Next and Pruitt, a county attorney, 2 private investigators, an expert witness, and a bottomless pit of money. And this is what I had to agree to because I knew that I didn't have the resources in order to fight it.
At the point in time when the lawsuit was first filed, do you recall what the county had already spent on its investigation?
Over $1 million.
At the point when the county had filed its lawsuit, did it have $1 million head start?
It did.
If you could turn to Defense Exhibit 38. Does Defense Exhibit 38, well, what does it look like?
It's a copy of a check to Nelson Mullins, personal check from me.
And if you turn the page, what does the next check look like?
Personal check to Nelson Mullins from me.
And turn the page, what is the next page?
Personal check to Nelson Mullins from me.
Now, on the flat fee component, have all of the fees that you owe by law firm been paid?
No, I'm not.
Why haven't all of those fees been
I
paid?
haven't been able to afford it.
Mr. Preston, please turn to the Defense Exhibit 39. Does Exhibit 39 reflect a summary of costs incurred in litigating this case for the past 3 years?
It was Nelson Mullins' cost.
Does the first amount reflect $26.22?
Yes, it does.
And how about the second page and the second column of cost? What does that look like?
$3,248.84.
And what does the third page reflect?
$673.43.
Now, I have to ask you a further question about this page, Mr. Preston. There's 2 entries on here. One from September 15th of 2008 and one from September 27th of 2000, sorry. September 15th of 2010 and one from September 27th of 2010. Out of fairness to the county, are these expenses incurred with respect to this lawsuit?
Yes.
Actually, if you look down at 9/27/2010, does it reflect service on the South Carolina Budget and Control Board?
Yes.
That wouldn't be this lawsuit, would it?
No, it does not. Yeah.
So, out of fairness to the county, the 9/15 and 9/27 entries aren't properly attributed to this lawsuit. They're just misposted, right?
Yes, that's right. Appears to be.
With respect to the next summary of costs, go all the way down to the bottom to JP 00674. Does that reflect the next round of costs incurred with respect to this litigation?
This section here.
To the very end.
Very good. Okay. Yes, it does.
And how much is that amount?
9,460.59.
And does this, through these summary of costs, include the costs incurred during the trial of this case?
No, they do not.
Would your expectation be that there'd be an additional series of costs associated with just being here this week?
Absolutely.
Is the total amount of costs, if you add all those up, somewhere in the neighborhood of $13,200?
Yes.
Mr. Preston, if you could turn for me to Plaintiff's Exhibit 40. What is Plaintiff's Exhibit 40?
It's a retainer agreement between myself and the Upstate Law Group.
Was this agreement